Welcome to Sunday Morning with Trevor Phillips. It's quite possible that the person most taken aback by the huge turnout at yesterday's Unite the Kingdom demonstration was its organiser, the hard-right activist known as Tommy Robinson. 150,000 people crammed into central London, most carrying national flags, the Union Jack, the Cross of St George, even the Scottish saltire, protesting about immigration, about free speech, and about the decline of Christianity. There was some fearsome rhetoric, including from Elon Musk, who called for the overthrow of the British government. At the margins, there was some hooliganism. But I think that for those who oppose Robinson and his ilk, the most alarming aspect of the event was just how normal the vast majority of the marches were. I spent an hour or two amongst them, and my own impression was that they were mostly the sort of people you'd meet in a country pub or in half-time queue for the loo at football or at a concert. There was a sprinkling of black and brown faces, and the event was brought to a close by a gospel group singing Jerusalem. All that must worry the traditional mass parties, Labour and Conservatives, now polling at less than 40% between them. They're draining support to parties like Reform and the Greens. And yet, a man recently out of jail, condemned as an extremist thug by most mainstream media outlets, can rally a demo the size of the entire population of Cambridge or Blackpool. A feat you couldn't imagine either Sir Keir Starmer or Kemi Badenoch pulling off anytime soon. Perhaps the people are sending us all a message. Let's see if anyone at Westminster's listening. It's been another truly awful week for the government, with growing concerns over the Prime Minister's judgment around the appointment and sacking of Peter Mandelson. A little earlier, I spoke to the new Business Secretary, Peter Kyle. Peter Kyle, there were 150,000 people on a demonstration in London yesterday, organised by Tommy Robinson, who's just recently left jail. Does that disturb you?
It doesn't disturb me because it's actually proof that we live in a country where free speech, free association is alive and well. The bit that disturbs me is that when a minority go to an extreme and end up perpetrating violence against the police, that is unacceptable, and those people should and will pay a price for it.
I think everybody will agree with that, but I think the striking thing was simply the size of this. I mean, it surprised the organisers, I imagine, certainly surprised the police. But does it give you pause for thought that a demonstration... The planks were essentially anti-migration, concerns actually about free speech, and I spoke to several people on demo who talked about that. And, by the way, the decline of Christian religion. Does that not send you a signal that maybe something needs to be addressed?
Well, I say 110,000 people or 100,000 people, people there with lots of different reasons. The flag was waved a lot. You know, I do want to make the point that flag belongs to all of us. And that flag means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but it is about essential British and, yes, in this case, English values and principles. Those English values and principles include free speech, freedom of association and the like. And all of those things are demonstrated just by the fact that that protest went along and that demonstration went along completely freely, shows that those values are actually alive and well.
OK. One of the issues on the march was the issue of migration. There are some suggestions in the papers this morning that the government will start flights to France on the one-in, one-out policy this week. What do we know about that?
Well, what we know about that is that we are straining at the bit to get a grip on the migration crisis that we inherited from the Conservatives, where their free entry into the UK experiment left us with a disastrous inheritance. So we've been straining at the bit. We've been doing everything we can. The lesson is that by cooperating with our partners, France, rather than rowing with them, we are able to deliver. So I hope the flights will start as quickly as possible. I don't know the exact date they will, but people need to look at this and see that we are straining at the bit. Okay. We are also angry about what we have inherited, and we are doing everything possible to get a grip on it.
All right, let's talk about the news of the week. Is it correct that Peter Mandelson was appointed, his appointment was announced, before the security checks had been completed?
No. The Cabinet Office did an independent inquiry into the appointment, as they do in every public appointment of this nature, and the information that was presented to the Prime Minister. The second process was obviously a political process, where there are political conversations done in number 10 about all the other aspects of an appointment of this nature. Now, both of these things turned up information that was already public, and a decision was made that, based on Peter's singular talents in this area, that the risk of appointing, knowing what was already public, was worth the risk. Now, of course, we have seen the emails which were not published at the time, were not public and not even known about, and that has changed the situation.
Turned out not to be worth the risk, didn't it?
Well, look at what we've achieved in that time. We were the first country to deliver a trade deal and a tariff deal with Trump. Trump says publicly that it is the best deal that has been done. Then you look at the state visit and you look at everything we're about to announce. I'm announcing today that the American banks are investing an additional £1.2 billion in Britain. They are creating 1,000 jobs in Belfast, hundreds of jobs in Edinburgh and Manchester. All of this has come from the steadfast negotiation which has been done by a singular talent with a Prime Minister that is there leading from the front.
I want to come back to talk about the issue of investment, but let's just clear away what has actually happened this week, because there's some murk here. First of all, did the Prime Minister actually talk to Peter Mandelson before he sacked him?
I don't know the details of this. I was in China doing trade talks, and before that I was in Washington preparing for this trip, so I'm not all over who said what and when. But Trevor, can I just say...
Hang on. Before we go on to anything else, most viewers will be a bit puzzled. You're out on the round this morning speaking for the government. They didn't tell you whether the Prime Minister spoke to the UK's ambassador before he sacked him.
Trevor, the emails spoke for themselves.
No, I'm just talking about the way the Prime Minister conducted this sacking. Did he or did he not speak to Peter Mandelson before he sacked him?
I think when you look at the issues at hand here, and let me just pause for a second.
Well, you don't know, then.
Let me just pause for a second. We are, and bear in mind that there are victims of what Jeffrey... It's important. It's important.
I know you want to take me away to somewhere else, but this is actually about the way the Prime Minister does his business. If somebody was sacking you, would you expect them to speak to you or not? So I'm asking, did the Prime Minister speak to Peter Mandelson before he sacked him?
Trevor, I've never been sacked before, and I know other people who have been sacked in various different jobs who haven't had the person at the top of the organisation do the sacking themselves.
So you didn't talk to him?
Trevor, I have asked lots of questions about this before I come and did this round. One of the things I didn't ask was whether the Prime Minister made the call himself. I think when you see the issues at stake, when you see that at the heart of this are victims of a paedophile that was convicted, then I think the most strident issues that I should be caring about is what were the circumstances, what is new, what drove this to happen, not actually who made the phone calls to actually deliver the news to who. The key thing is that the Prime Minister, within hours of actually seeing the new evidence, the new information, he took decisive action.
Let's talk about this, whether this new information. Prime Minister said the proper process of vetting had been followed. Are we expected to believe that none of this information was revealed? I've been vetted, you've been vetted, and I've been vetted for things which are nowhere near as significant as this job. And I doubt that had I had this kind of correspondence, it wouldn't have been revealed. So we're expected to believe that nobody knew about this relationship or the depth of this relationship?
We knew that it was a strong relationship. We knew all of the public information. But Peter Mandelson has done...
the vetting is meant to go behind the public information, isn't it? Or doesn't it?
Well, no, it goes to everything that is within reach. And the information that has come to light was not in reach. The Prime Minister, as soon as the new information came... Look, the heart of the issue, and I understand what it is that he had a relationship with Epstein that was known about publicly. And was that enough to actually prevent him from having the job in the first place? When you are dealing with the matters between two governments and you are trying to get a talent which is singular to put to the bear on behalf of our country, which has been proven to be delivering for our country, these are decisions that the Prime Minister made. We knew that there were risks involved, but also his talent led us to believe at the time that the risk was worth it.
I know you want to take me off onto the more general
I'm not trying
issues,
to take you off...
But there's a very specific... In this particular case, the timeline of events and who did what when really matters. The Prime Minister strenuously and vociferously defended the ambassador to the United States on Wednesday. But we know now that these emails, the text of them, was available on Tuesday. Now, I know you'll tell me the Prime Minister didn't read it till Wednesday, Wednesday night. But something is wrong here. Either the Prime Minister just didn't know, but somebody should have told him before he stood up before the House of Commons, or maybe he did know. Which is true?
The emails in full were not released until Wednesday evening.
No, we know they were in number 10 on Tuesday. Number 10 said this.
Number 10 had what was publicly available on Tuesday, which was extracts of emails, which were not in context, and they weren't the full emails.
No, they had the Bloomberg emails on Tuesday.
No, Trevor, they had what was public, which was extracts of emails. And if you just let me just finish the sequence here. And immediately upon being alerted to extracts of emails, the Foreign Office contacted Peter Mandelson and asked for his account of the emails and asked for them to be put into context and for his response. That response did not come before PMQs, and then after PMQs, the full emails were released by Bloomberg in the evening. By the first thing the next morning, when the Prime Minister had time to read the emails in full, having had them in full, and reading them almost immediately of having them, Peter was withdrawn as ambassador.
Is your point here that Peter Mandelson essentially lied, or I think the expression now was economical with the truth?
I can't say what happened, but for whatever reason, the full content of the emails and the existence of those specific emails was not known. But let me just make this very clear.
Can I ask one other question?
We're talking less than 24 hours from seeing the full emails and Peter being withdrawn from Washington. This was decisive. The Prime Minister has always put the national interest first. He has done what is right for the country to deliver for the country. And as soon as the emails became public, he withdrew Peter Mandelson.
One thing that puzzles me, though, is that the Prime Minister, we now know this is true because Number 10 said this, Prime Minister interrogated Lord Mandelson about the relationship with Epstein himself. This is one of the country's leading barristers. If he couldn't actually have got the information from Peter Mandelson before the appointment, who could? I mean, who failed here? Who failed here? Somebody must have failed.
Well, look, it comes back to this central point. There was a lot of information publicly. We knew that there was a relationship. We knew the relationship continued after he had been convicted. The decision was taken in the national interest to try and use the specific talents that he had, which were singular and outstanding. Now, all of the media, Trevor, had also the same information that we had at the time.
All of the media
Trevor,
do not have the responsibility for appointment.
Well, the media has the responsibility for interrogating and also doing what it does, which is holding government to account. And lots of comments, including from you, were celebrating his appointment as ambassador.
Yeah, but nobody has put me in charge of making the appointment. I think I want to stick with who.
No, I know what you want to stick. I know what you want to stick with, Trevor. But the fact is,
and by the way,
public knew. The media knew all of this, the relationship. We only knew what the media knew at that time. We only knew because you didn't.
What's the point of the heavy vetting if all that you know is what I know? I mean, what's the point of having MI6? What's the point of having all of these civil servants? If what you end up doing is saying, actually, we don't know anything more than you do, or did they know and just ignore it?
No, there was no question that the contents of these specific emails weren't known about or made public or were used in either of the inquiries or the investigations before the appointment process.
All right. Look, Peter Mandelson's not going to be in high office again. We all know that. But the Prime Minister who sanctioned the appointment is still there. You must see that this raises some wider questions, which are about the Prime Minister's judgment. He backed and sacked Louise Haigh. He backed and sacked Rushanara Ali and Tulip Siddiq, or they stood down. He backed and sacked Angela Rayner, and now Peter Mandelson. How many cases is it going to take before at least somebody asks the question, is there something wrong, either about the Prime Minister's judgment or the machine he has around him?
When you've got a government which has over 120 ministers in it, you are going to have people that come and go from time to time, and you are going to have people who don't live up to the standards that we expect. Now, let me make this point. Keir Starmer raised the bar for standards in public life. He gave more powers for the Commissioner for Public Standards so that he can have independent inquiries and that he can do inquiries swifter. Okay. So I make this point to you. Whereas when Priti Patel was investigated,
well,
it took.
Yes, let's get to that. Let's get to that point.
Well, let me finish the point because you don't know the point.
No, I don't want to finish that point because what you want to because I think when Priti Patel and when Boris Johnson did what you were absolutely unsparing. You didn't come on and say, oh well, you know, there are 120 ministers. There's going to be problems. You attacked them on every single one.
And you're making my point for me, Trevor.
Which is what?
Well, give me 10 seconds and I'll tell you. You're making the point for me because I called for it, but it took 2 months. The Commissioner said that she had fallen foul of the standards of public life, even though they were lower than they are today, and he didn't sack her. In fact, it was the Commissioner that went, not the Minister. With Keir Starmer, what he does do is take time to get to the bottom of the facts. He allows the Commissioner to do his work, and every single time he has acted decisively when the facts have come to light and the Commissioner has spoken. In this case, even though this is a really difficult issue, it involves crimes that have victims that we should always bear in mind at moments like this. Within hours of having the facts, Keir made a decision. We are based on a leader that has raised the standards, given more power to the Commissioner, and then that means it's harder for people to meet these standards from time to time. He acts decisively.
We could talk about this forever, but I just want to spare a few minutes at the end of this interview to talk about your actual job. But just before we get onto that, one more bit of politics. You've got Labour's about to get a new deputy. It'll either be Bridget Phillipson or Lucy Powell. Who are you backing?
Do you know, I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to say publicly. But
you're a parliamentarian.
But I have a lot of respect for my cabinet colleagues, and I think those who are in cabinet are doing a fantastic job at the moment, and would make and if anyone were in there, they would make a brilliant deputy.
All right. Well, by the way, one of Lucy Powell's prominent backers is Andy Burnham. Talk of him coming back to Commons. Would you like to see that?
Andy's a real talent. I think he's doing an incredible job in Manchester at the moment, and I think Manchester really needs him. I love working with him in Manchester. It'd be a shame for Manchester to lose him. Am I allowed to talk about my job now for a moment?
Yeah. I quite like the formulation there. It's great for Andy Burnham to stay in Manchester.
Well, he hasn't said he wants to come to the Commons. He's a great talent, and I love working with him.
Let us talk about your job. You're going to there will be trade talks this week with the President when he comes here. The President wants us and EU countries to ramp up sanctions against Russia and secondary sanctions against countries that continue to trade with Russia, including China and India. Are we ready for that?
We're having those conversations. I mean, I was in Washington on Sunday and Monday, less than a day and a half after being appointed to the job of business and trade. We are having very detailed conversations on a whole range of issues, the fruits of which are partly going to be announced in the coming weeks. So I'm already announcing that American banks are investing an additional £1.2 billion into Britain. That means 1,000 jobs in Belfast, hundreds of jobs in Edinburgh and Manchester. These are new deals. This is banks like Citibank. These are Standard & Poor investing a lot of money for the very first time in parts of our country. It's not just London. We're making sure through these negotiations it benefits the whole of the UK. So the relationship we have with America is actually benefiting workers right around the country. Compare that to Nigel Farage, who goes to America and calls for them to punish Britain. Just look at the difference in leadership and what it can deliver for our country. This is the start of a great week for us.
I want to be fair to let you make that point, but the question I actually asked you was, are we open to putting extra tariffs on, for example, China and India, as the President has requested to support Ukraine?
We are open to those conversations, and we're looking at ways that we can support Ukraine very creatively, very assertively, and very imaginatively in this time, and that means working with America. We have suggestions. America has suggestions, and I can tell you, having been there this week myself, in the White House, in the West Wing, they are very constructive conversations. We have a good partner in America, and it is strengthening, not weakening.
So we're clear that we're open to that. Can I ask about another thing, part of your job? One of the key pillars of your industrial policy is life sciences. Two of the biggest firms in that sector, AstraZeneca and Merck, have dropped billion-dollar plans to invest here. Alongside that, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the boss of INEOS, the energy company, has announced that INEOS won't be investing in the United Kingdom. First of all, how serious a blow is that to industrial strategy? And is there anything that you think you can do to persuade them to change their minds?
Well, you say the word serious. These are serious people with serious businesses. Now, one of those businesses hasn't dropped it. They've actually paused for a moment because they want more discussions with government, and we are intensively engaging in those discussions. Secondly, there is another side to this coin. You have BioNTech, a German pharma company, who has just invested, because I signed the deal with them, £1 billion for the very first time in Britain. They did so saying that they like the direction of travel with our regulatory reform, with the other reforms we're doing to the economy, and they believe that's going to create a great environment for investment. So it's not just a one-way street here. But I am acknowledging, Trevor, that this is a tough time for the pharmaceutical industry, both domestically and globally. There are a lot of challenging, competing forces at work.
Britain... It's not quite right. They haven't said they're not investing. They said they're not investing here. And that's to do with their confidence, or lack of it, in our government, isn't it?
It's to do with a lot of competing forces, including, you see, America being very assertive about onshoring manufacturing of certain products that includes pharmaceuticals. Now, these are things that we are intensively negotiating about. We are the best place to do R&D. We're the best place to manufacture these high-precision pharma products. And we're in negotiations. We have other companies that are investing more. There's a lot, I think, we'll be announcing in the near future, I hope, because we are in such intense negotiations. It's an important sector. We want to keep that sector here. We understand that there are stresses and strains, and we're working to overcome them.
Peter Carr, thank you for your time this morning.
Thanks, Trevor.